Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's very good. I took a picture of it.
That's where they were.
That is, I mean, that's the thing. People and see, they talk about, oh, it's closely, what does that mean? We don't know. Yes. I mean,
I think, Carol, are you having somebody pick up the...
yes, we have people are coming through. Oh, okay. But we have one now.
Those chemicals go in.
We will have.
I used to have to service these things every time I worked on
Folks, I'd like to bring us back into our discussion, which is going to be the question and answer period. I would like to let Robin address one comment she made, please.
I just wanted to say that I misspoke about the placement of the diesel generators. It is our understanding that they're actually going to be on the ground and not on the roof. The chillers and everything are going to be on the roof, but the diesel generators should be on the ground. Just a clarification, sorry about that.
Folks, and throughout the question and answer period, if you have more questions, please ask for another card, write it down, send it through. And we're just going to take them as I receive, and we'll answer as we're able. Start of my stack. First, thank you all for the energy and efforts. The Royal Hawk Town Council made a visit to a data center. Has anyone on this panel done the same? If so, what did you discover? We have two people I know that can definitely speak to this.
I went this weekend to the Maiden Data Center, the Apple Data Center that the town council went to, and I actually just wrote up something for our commissioners on it. It's a big campus. Some of the things that are different is the Apple Data Center is one level, so it's about 38 to 40 feet tall. The Iron Spur is going to be more like 84 feet tall. So there's a big difference there. The Apple Data Center actually sits kind of inside the property some. And so what that allows them to do, and what they did from pretty much the beginning of the data center, I think before they fired up anything, was they built these huge berm perimeters, so these earthen berms, like these massive hills. And I'm not an engineer, but and then what they did was they planted a bunch of trees on top of that, like evergreens. So basically, there were only two entrance points because they're very secure. I about got run off by security. But there were two entrance points where you could actually see the data center, where it wasn't obscured by these berms. And there was definitely a 10 decibel difference. I would say that at the entrances, it was reading, and I could hear it. It was like a washing machine, to be honest with you. And it was probably, I think the readings were about 65 or something like that, 62 to 65. And I was quite a distance, as you can imagine, in a secure place. But when I was behind these earthen berms, these large hills, and I could not see the data center, it was obscured. I mean, they were more like probably in the 40s. So those earthen berms really helped to suppress that noise. But we're not going to have that, obviously, with an 84-foot building. You're not going to build an 84-foot berm. And I don't think that they have the land around there. They're proposing that the Project Iron Spur be on 129 acres. The Apple Data Center is on 400 plus acres. So they have a lot more land. The street in front of the Apple Data Center is pretty busy. I mean, I was thinking maybe like a Peacehaven Road or something like that in Winston-Salem, maybe Broad Street, kind of thing. So it's actually hard for me to get some readings. But there aren't many people around there. There's nothing like the neighborhoods we have here that we're dealing with. There were two houses across the street, some chickens and some dogs were going off and stuff like that. But it just was a lot more isolated. But the berms, I think, are a big difference. It's a lot shorter buildings, so they can build up those berms so you cannot see the data center, and that really decreases the amount of noise. Actually, I couldn't really hear much noise, but when I was closer to the entrances, where the berms weren't there was definitely a difference.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
So isn't it true that that data center is also driven with solar power?
Yes,
So
so
does that mean no diesel generators at all?
they do have diesel generators, because I looked that up, but they use the solar energy that they have, and they can use, from what I read, and some of it might have been, pro-Apple, so just take that for a grain of salt, but they use the solar power during the day, and then they've made a commitment with Duke Power to only use renewable energy at night. But I do believe, from what I read, they do have backup diesel generators.
The next card has two questions, and I will answer the first question if everyone's comfortable with that. First question is, data center being proposed is not light industrial. How can this get passed? The concern is that right now with our zoning, our planning boards, we are not properly set up to handle what a data center is. We have not set up our zoning and land use to accommodate what type of business this is and how it will impact the communities. Right now, with our current zoning, if we are building them, they do need to go into heavy industrial areas away from residential because of the continuous noise, the vibration. What really needs to be done to properly address is to do the moratoriums like many communities are doing to allow us to catch up to what this technology is and how the construction and the building of these massive structures that do make 24/7 noise and other concerns environmentally, we need to catch up to their construction before we allow them. The second question is, who is using butane now? Eve, do you know where that goes past, or anyone else?
I don't know where it goes, so it is coming out of, I don't know where it goes to, but those tankers that you saw in the rail yard, it is being pumped out of those into transfer trailer trucks. So it's being dispersed wherever that butane would be needed, would be my guess.
Why do the tankers sit there in Rural Hall? Eve, do you want me to address this, or do you have the answer to that? For the most part, I know that the original, when these tankers came in, they had, I think it was with Yadkin Valley, they had addressed various communities. I know Elkin was one, there were a couple others on the line heading towards Rural Hall, asking the communities if they would allow them to set up this type of rail yard. Rural Hall accepted. I'm not sure that the people were allowed to voice an opinion before this. In 2023, I believe, is when they decided, or 2024, that the butane would be allowed. And again, that was not brought before the people in Rural Hall. Our administrative, our town council made these decisions without input from the people. So does that answer the question for the person as best we can?
Carol,
Yes, ma'am.
I know that the tank farm in Greensboro would not accept butane trains going through. And so they went to Rural Hall instead. So Greensboro nixed that because of the tank farm.
So potentially, this could be a concern that we as a community, maybe once we get through the data center concern, maybe we address this next for those that are interested. I think there's a number of us in this group that are very interested in following up on this. If the county commissioners approve the rezoning, are there any actions we can take to challenge the approval or otherwise stop the project? The commissioners can be sued, can't they? Would you please come forward?
Hey, good evening. The question about what happens if the county commissioners vote for it. So this already has a legal precedent which has been set in Forsyth County. There's been a large court case that's already been decided in what's called a spot zoning lawsuit issue. So the way it works is the planning board, who are appointed by the county commissioners, hire their own staff. The staff writes their recommendation. That recommendation goes to the board, and they vote to either approve or deny, agree or disagree with that recommendation. Generally speaking, county commissioners tend not to vote against the people they put into the position to make those recommendations. So should they choose not to follow suit with planning staff and planning board, yes, there is an opportunity for a spot zoning lawsuit challenge. Does that answer the question?
I was at the data center on Silence Creek Parkway near Sunny Knoll at 12:30 p.m. one day, and this very black smoke was billowing out of the exhaust. There was a man standing near the parkway with a clipboard. Maybe this was a test? I thought cooling towers sent out steam. What will this data center be like? Black smoke versus condensation. We have a member that wants to.
Repeat the question.
The black smoke they say was with diesel cranking up. They have to test these generators, if not once a day, at least once a week. They have to be tested to make sure that they are operational when they are needed. So you will see the black smoke from the diesel generator. You will see that when they fire up. You may not see the condensation on a hot day like today. It's there. You will really see it on a cool morning. If you look over at Blues Creek, those stacks on a cool morning, what you see at Blues Creek will be that's the condensation and the moisture you'll see. Maybe not as big as those stacks, but that's what you will see. And then you have to remember which way the wind's blowing that evaporated water with the chemicals in it.
How old are the water lines in the town? I'm not sure we have anyone that can address this, so we will come back to this. We will follow through because our water lines are run through the city of Winston-Salem. The town does manage them, and they could exist from when we were a sanitary district, but we will come back to this. There is one observation, this is not any proof, but anyone that has driven on Broad Street over the last few years knows how many of the bumps we now feel are broken water lines. In front of my house, 2 summers ago, I had a broken line that we called Lake Anderson because for 2 months there was a hole large enough that a car larger than my car could drop into it and would disappear. You would have been stuck in the water. So we'll come back to this one.
I do have an estimation of 50 to 85 years old.
Okay, we have 50 to 85 years old is probably the response to that, but we promise we will follow through and make sure through public records we will get an exact answer back to you. Is there a data center this large as the one proposed for Rural Hall and one that is diesel generated here in North Carolina? I will start and then let Robin follow. The Maiden one, I believe, is the largest. That one right now, the maximum power usage for its capacity at this time, I think, is 100 megawatts.
I looked
Are
at
they
it.
gonna?
I think it's 223.
223.
Yeah, it's hard to find that information.
But it is, the spacing is just smaller. They are adding to it. Let Robin follow.
Yeah, I looked it up. It's actually really hard to find information on data centers. They're very secure about what they will let out, but I did find on one site 223. And I have nothing to add to what Carol said about, data centers in the area. Most of them seem to be much smaller than either the Apple Center or the one that they're proposing here or the one in particularly Stokes.
I would add on that the developer was unable to direct us to one that would be like that we could go to.
Yes, the developer was unable to direct us to one like it. Also, the developer, when they first spoke to us on March 30th, when asked if there were other data centers in Forsyth County, responded he did not know. And at that time, we had at least 3 that we could speak. Their old generation, nothing compared to the one we are considering here in Rural Hall. If this data center goes in here, what impacts will it have on our kids' health?
Well, it can decrease their concentration, their reading literacy, and the school was only like a mile from the data center, so a lot of the kids have ADHD, and that noise will be hard to black out, and so they won't be able to filter it out, and that'll interfere with their learning. And to the mega power lines, that increases the risk of cancer or leukemia in children. Yeah, sleep deprivation, that's the big thing. Everything, just about all the medical problems that come from the data center is the disruption of the cortisol and adrenalines, because we're kept in a hyper alert state. And that causes us to secrete the stress hormones, which causes all of the cardiac and but sleep disruption contributes to that.
Plus lung cancer, pollution.
Yes.
Yeah, the pollution will add both cardiovascular, lung concern,
Asthma.
asthma. Why do data centers require so much water?
The reason, again, they use so much water is because you have airflow. The air is what's cooling the water down. The hotter it is, the more the fan runs, the more airflow, the more water evaporation. You can see it out here, anywhere you go. Put water on the ground, the hotter it is, the quicker it evaporates. When it's a cool day, it doesn't evaporate as much. But it takes a lot of water. And these, again, they run 24/7, day and night. And you have to remember to talk about putting in chemicals. pH gets high, and you have a drain. You've got to drain that water out to get the pH down and then add more chemicals. It's just a vicious cycle. The hotter it gets, the more chemicals, the more bleed, and that's when you take so much water.
Does closed loop recycle water 6 times? Does that mean it is purged on the 7th cycle and requires complete refill?
They can say 6 times, they're not positive. There's a sensor in the line, and it reads the pH. The pH is the acidity in the water. The pH gets high, that's when they bleed the water down, and that's when you add. It's based on the pH of the water, how much you add, and how much you bleed. The hotter it is, the higher the pH will go up. pH is good around 7.2. 7.2 to about 8 point is ideal. That's what your city water is. You get above that, it gets acidity. And that will cause rust and other issues, especially in the pipes. So, and you'll taste it then if it's above that.
On the info about contacting commissioners, it states, please CC me. Who is me and what is the email for them? Deborah? Would you like to respond why that has been added?
Am I not talking loud enough?
If you were taller, it'd do better.
So, I'm sorry. So, I'm trying to sort of keep up with what issues people are most concerned about, and like if we seem to be saying, if it seems like everybody is saying the same thing, then I'll tell people, hey, we've done enough on this subject, let's move to a different subject, just to make sure that our commissioners are getting a really good sprinkling of information.
And your email?
Deb Dembski, DEMSKE@gmail.
And of course, Jim,
We've already wrote to our county commissioners. Do you want me to forward those to you as well?
Sure.
yeah, and folks, it's helpful for our research and understanding. Of course, there's no expectation. If you don't want to CC anyone, there's no need to. The most important thing is that we're reaching out to the county commissioners, calling them, writing letters, and emailing. Just reaching out to them, and if you feel comfortable CCing Deborah, that helps us with just knowing if we need to address something that's been left out. But we want you to speak from your heart, speak to your concerns, because that's the most important thing going before the county commissioners. There's never just one small data center. In other states, they come in clusters. How will they meet their energy and water demands in a way that leaves residents with enough water and electricity without noise and pollution? Well, first off, that's why we're all here questioning that. Does anyone want to address, or multiple people, with some of the concerns?
I know this because my brother-in-law Dennis told me when they run low on electricity, they will buy it from other states. So they meet the demand however they can. They ask for volunteer reduction in power usage. We've seen that around Christmas time, I think 2 years back. So that's the main thing they do, is they will buy it from other states. The water will Winston-Salem says they have plenty of water, in excess of 91 million gallons. But that's what they're licensed to treat. We're not sure they have that much, and we know that it's a little low right now because they've asked for voluntary conservation.
And just remember, when they're running low on energy, so you think summertime, like right now, when the air conditioners are all running, and it's over 85 degrees, that's when they're going to fire up those diesel generators. Duke Power apparently will contact the data center and say, hey, you have to get off the grid because there's too much energy, and that's when they will fire up those diesel generators. And that's kind of known as their emergency. So that's when you'll see the diesel generators go on. Yeah, that's true. When it's, if the power goes out, obviously, that's another reason why. So if you have an impending storm coming, if they say, oh, there's going to be bad weather, they may fire up those diesel generators to avoid any kind of blip in electricity that they have. And obviously, if the electricity does go out, then of course we're going to really hear the diesel generators because there will be nothing else going on.
And as moderator, I'm going to take the moment to add to this question if everyone's comfortable with that.
Yep.
In addition to construction, some data centers, what they do is they build one building at a time. Because sometimes it's waiting to get all the energy promised by Duke Energy for us. They also will work on what's bridge energy, which means running off of generators, and Robin will probably be able to address that a little bit. But the other concern is that the data center will build and get operational probably one of the buildings. And in that time, they'll still be doing construction, which means in addition to the noise, the change of the environment, our community with one data center running, we're still going to have all the construction for anywhere from 3 more years. And that's if they stop with the 3 to 4 that's proposed. So I'm going to let Robin speak on bridge energy if she's comfortable.
Oh, sure. So I found bridge energy. There are data centers basically in Virginia. That's where we hear a lot about the data centers, to be honest with you. And there was a notorious data center that they weren't going to get their energy from the power for 3 years. And so they started firing up generators, and then that's become what they do all the time. They're not diesel generators. I'm drawing a blank on what they are, but basically that was what was producing the low hum. So as Carol said, I mean, you know, unfortunately, there's just not much regulation. So, you know, what happens if they start building one building and then they start building the other building and they're like, we have a client here, and they really want to get going. I mean, you know, what's going to happen when they push on people to, you know, give them a permit to run the diesel generators as an emergency generation or as bridge generation so they can get up and going. So, you know, I think, like Carol said, I think that's kind of why there are some moratoriums, because the truth is that the technology is ahead of our regulations. So that's another area where they might run the diesel generators if they're saying they need the bridge power before Duke Energy can get them that power.
Do we know what the heat island effect of the data center, how much it might cause temperature to increase?
Heat islands can cause up to 16 degrees hotter within a short distance, but an increase in temperatures up to 0.6 miles. So quite a bit. We do not know what that does to the earth or the insects in the earth, the bees. So it's a concern. The heat island definitely is. And the more buildings there are, the worse that will be.
And for those of us that live here in Rural Hall, knowing that our town is 2.9 square miles, now this will affect pretty much then everyone in our town. We will feel the heat island if this data center is allowed to come. How close are the tankers to the proposed data center? Eve, I think you know best.
So Amber's going to pull up the slide, but the distance from the tracks to the potential substation will be 132 feet. The distance, and I'm just going to throw this out there too, the distance from the butane tankers to the fire department is only 112 feet. And I bring that up because that's concerning, because who's going to put out the fire if they explode with us?
Is the data center going to happen or not, and why? It depends on whom you speak to. The most important thing I know is that it does lie in the hands of the county commissioners at this point. Now, they are elected representatives, and that's why we, as the citizens, need to reach out and make sure we're voicing our opinion, any of our concerns with them. It's still, the City County Planning Board did vote 7-2 to recommend denial because of the land use and the concerns that this was all too close to residential. The impact would be too much to the residential homes close by. It's still, as we know, if you're paying attention to Stokes County, the recommendation from the planning board can be overridden by the county commissioners. It's important that we make them understand that we're calling it pie in the sky promises of tax revenue does not exist. When the developer first came to us on March 30th, they presented that the potential tax revenue at that time annually could be 30 to 60 million. Well, that's a pretty wide range. And if any of us in business were to present to our supervisor, our boss, our shareholders, such a potential, we would be sent back to the drawing board to come back with a more exact number. Now, what has happened, every time the developer has come before us, or the steering committee, that annual potential has dropped. The most recent appears to be I think it was 77.6 over 10 years. Now, to explain that potential tax revenue still, that would be on an ideal situation that all three buildings at the present site were dropped down immediately. All the equipment was placed in the building at that time, and they were able to do property tax at that point, because only then could you get even the most, which is with the most recent of the potential tax revenue, meaning 7.7 million a year. Even that would only be in the ideal situation with everything coming down day one operational. What cannot occur? The equipment inside the data center with other businesses, it is business property, so it is taxed on with the property tax. It depreciates on the first year. Just like any of you, if you bought a new car, you drive it off to your lot, you've already lost a lot. The data center equipment depreciates even at a higher extreme, because it has to be replaced every 3 to 5 years, the equipment inside. So we know that at the best, we can't even get the 7.7 million, which is a big sum for someone like Rural Hall and Forsyth County, but we don't know what the true potential could be. Want to add to that? Is the data, I'm sorry, that one we just, how to stop I'm sorry. I might need someone to read this one to me. It's written really small and I'm having difficulty. I'll come back to it. Transparency. What experience does Drox or Montrose have building data centers? Who is going to be the end user? How about some transparency?
I can hear you. Sure.
Well, we have met Montrose from the very beginning. That was March 30th, and their representatives have been here, and they explained to us that they were working for Drox, the developer. Well, at the most recent county commissioner meeting, we actually had Representative Graham Drury from Drox. And pretty much what he said was that he was doing the exact same thing that Montrose was, that they were both developers, and that they would be there through entitlement and permitting. Drox stated that if the potential client, the person who would either own or lease the property to run the data center, would want a partner, potentially Drox would partner with it. That would be contingent on the eventual client, the person who would own or lease the property. Data centers traditionally do not give a lot of information as to who will be the operator. They keep that down. We feel quite sure from the comments made through Montrose that they know who it is, because they have said that the client has requested ceiling heights in the design work. Well, you can't know who, if you don't know who the client is, they cannot be recommending design information. And part of it, they say, is they keep this secret just because of, well, they can, I guess. But with transparency, we want transparency not just from the developers, which is going to be the most difficult. We need to demand transparency from our elected officials as well.
So just very briefly, one topic we talked about ever since March 30th is that there are very serious security concerns. And originally, we were really thinking about the danger of drone attacks on these data centers, because they can have tenants that are related to national security issues. And it does happen. And just recently, the New York Times wrote an article about things getting stolen from data centers. That's why they basically look like prison camps with massive security all around it and all kinds of security features inside the building. But there is really ultimately the reason
to be known that that tenants themselves do not want to be known tenants for security reasons. It could be the military, it could be Apple, it could be Microsoft, but they make themselves a target when you know that they are living with that data.
Is the lifespan of hyperscale data centers such as Iron Spur known?
We do not know. They haven't told us. I know because just background in technology. There's new technology out there for providing cooling to a lot of these servers. There is immersive technology, and that's where the servers actually reside underwater, and they still work. They have new chips that are being made. So what we're saying there is, as those progress and advance, they can extend the life of that data center. As long as the mechanical systems are maintained properly, then their life will be extended. Otherwise, if new technology comes along that they can't support, or that building can't support, then they'll build elsewhere. And we'll have empty buildings.
How to stop, explain political process to allow building a data center. I think we pretty much already covered that with the process that we're going through with the planning board. I like this one. How is Sierra Club involved? What other groups could be brought into the fight? I'm very happy to say that we have a lot of groups involved in this. We have not just Sierra Club, but Yadkin Riverkeeper. Hi, Nicole. We also have the SELC, the Southern Environmental Law Center, and another group of lawyers, the Southern Coalition for Social Justice, who also have some lawyers in there. And we have Clean Water from North Carolina, that's been a big help. And Piedmont Environmental Alliance is also a big help. So there are a lot of local groups also that are helping us out. I mean, and of course we have wonderful experts here who are lending their help as well. And we just have a lot of really smart people.
We also have other counties.
We do have other counties, yes. Oh, and there's a new coalition that just really started up earlier this year. That is the, I get their name, North Carolina Data Center Network. And that is a coalition throughout North Carolina. And so we've been using a lot of their information to help too.
The general manager for the LLC is a PE, whose experience is largely residential. The PE that represented the LLC at the county also is residential or small shopping centers. The LLC created in Delaware has no info or which individuals are the members of the LLC. How do we know that China or cartel people are not involved? The info for the property almost seems like has option for the land. Are they threatening and or forcing sale? I think the point I think of this is that we don't know a lot about the developers. We know that they have not done data centers. Montrose is working on the entitlements apparently with one in the Charlotte area. We just heard about this. He did not respond to that on March 30th, but in recent conversations he has mentioned that he is working on the entitlement permitting for one in Charlotte. They do not have experience in building, and apparently they will not build. They're just doing the entitlement and permitting, and then it's passed done. We don't have a lot of information, and as far as we know, from what we can experience with the sellers, they're not being forced. They are choosing and hoping to go this route. They were approached by the developers, and it is their choice to sell to the data center if they can, because the funds are just so much higher than if they were to sell to a residential developer. And now, back to...
And we got all our questions. Except for one. I'll come back to you.
Thank you all for being here tonight. We thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you have learned a lot, whether you were for it or against it on the fence. You know, we were all given a brain, and that's what we're here for, is up to us to use it. Thank all of you all. I've got a little gift out here, so come back and visit us in Little Hall Moravian Church anytime you like. Thank you.
You ready?
If anybody recognizes